Crazed, violent Bernie Sanders supporters, Black Lives Matter extremists, and other leftist agitators crashed a Donald Trump rally in Chicago last night. Unhinged mobs assaulted people, attacked police, tore up signs, blocked ambulances, fired guns in the air, and threatened to rape women. "Oh, but that's just their free speech," cried the media and Bernie Sanders supporters. Really? So if Donald Trump voters had crashed a Bernie Sanders event, assaulted his supporters, attacked police, tore up signs, blocked ambulances, fired guns in the air and threatened to rape women, you'd say that was just their free speech. Look at this Bernie supporter expressing his free speech. He's an anti-violence activist after all. Here's another peaceful Bernie voter, proudly threatening to physically attack Trump supporters. Here's a peaceful Bernie supporter flying a communist flag, a political system responsible for the deaths of hundreds of millions of people. So peaceful! Here are Black Lives Matter supporters wishing that someone had tried to assassinate Trump in Chicago. Look who showed up to voice his support for the anti-Trump crowd. Domestic terrorist Bill Ayers. And who did Megyn Kelly blame for all this? Donald Trump.
Trump's own rhetoric at his rallies, and in particular, some of the violence we have seen at his rallies, some of the violent clashes with protesters, who often are African American, has fed into what we're seeing here tonight.
Who did Rachel Maddow blame? Donald Trump.
Before this rally started, when we saw what was happening in the streets outside this event, and we saw what Donald Trump had done to incite violence, and I'm saying that deliberately, to incite violence from his event earlier today in St. Louis.
Who did Ted Cruz blame? Donald Trump.
But in any campaign, responsibility starts at the top. Any candidate is responsible for the culture of the campaign. You create an environment that only encourages this sort of nasty discourse.
Who did Marco Rubio blame? You guessed it, Donald Trump.
There are real consequences to the words that someone speaks, whether it's as a presidential candidate or ultimately as a president.
Donald Trump's rhetoric is to blame. I guess the Bernie supporters were offended, just like the Charlie Hebdo jihadists were offended. Poor babies. Listen, if over 1,000 violent, angry Trump supporters behaved anything like this, do you think the media would describe them as legitimate protesters? Oh, but they're protesting against fascism by silencing people's free speech with intimidation tactics and threatening them with violence if they vote a certain way. Yeah, I'm not sure if you knew this, but that's actually a hallmark of fascism. These are the people who will riot and burn American cities to the ground if Trump is elected president. Why? Because they've been given legitimacy by a mainstream media who said that looting and rioting was an acceptable form of protest after Ferguson. Black Lives Matter has been given credence despite the fact that its ideological inspiration is a convicted cop killer on the FBI's most wanted terrorist list. Despite the fact that its supporters have called for killing cops, plotted to bomb police stations, and have actually killed police officers. This is the group that Hillary Clinton promised to change laws to appease. Whether you love or loathe Donald Trump, encouraging this kind of mayhem is a recipe for disaster.